Thank you for joining us. This is Live with Miami's Community News. I'm Michael Miller, and our guests today are former Miami-Dade County School Board member Raquel Regalado and former Mayor of Pinecrest and State Representative Cindy Lerner. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
And thank you very much for being here. And for our audience, District 7 is Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, Key Biscayne, South Miami, East Kendall, and Pinecrest. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So what we're going to do is you're going to have 2 minutes each for your opening presentation, and then I'm going to ask some questions. Each one of you for a while, we'll get the same question. Each person will get 2 minutes, and after that, we have individual questions. So why don't you go ahead and take it away.
Perfect. My name is Raquel Regalado, and I want to be your commissioner for District 7. I served this district as a school board member from 2010 to 2016. I was elected in 2010. I ran for school board when my children were diagnosed in the autism spectrum. I proudly served Key Biscayne, the city of Miami, Coral Gables, South Miami, in this district, and I'm very proud of the work that I did on the school board. I left the school board to run for Miami-Dade County Mayor, and I'm committed to Miami-Dade County services. I can go area by area discussing what I did for the district. My major advocacy was in Tallahassee and ensuring that Miami-Dade County was well represented there and that we took our agenda and got our agenda passed in Tallahassee. I'm running for County Commission District 7 because I've lived in this district my entire life. I'm a native Miamian. My children live here. And I believe that we need serious help in terms of Miami-Dade County services. Everything from water and sewer and the removal of septic to our security and our agenda in Tallahassee, which is currently almost non-existent. So today I ask you to consider my candidacy for District 7. I'm accessible. I'm an attorney. I've been on the Florida bar for almost 20 years now. I still practice as an attorney, but I am a radio host. I am the daughter of the former mayor of the city of Miami. I'm very proud of the work that he's done. But I stand here on the work that I've done at the school board and what I could do for you at Miami-Dade County. I think it's important now more than ever to have county commissioners that aren't just elected, but are effective. And I'm happy to have the support of current Commissioner Javier Suarez, Vice Mayor of Vince Lago, the current Mayor of Coral Gables, Bade Fowley, and many others in the district who know the work that I've done at the school board. From Key Biscayne, who for 38 years waited for a high school, we got the Mast Academy after 3 years with the district and working with the village, to Coral Gables, where I eliminated controlled choice, to South Miami, where we reshaped JRE Lee, to the issues that we did with vaping and with school security.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
There's an old saying, sometimes the best laid plans of mice and men go astray.
The timer wasn't working.
So Cindy, Madam Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael, and Community News for giving us this opportunity to share a little bit about our backgrounds and our experience and our vision for District 7 and the County Commission. I would explain to the audience that, as I think that they well know, the local government, whether it's municipal or county, is where the rubber meets the road, literally and figuratively. So when we expect the quality of life issues that are so critically important to the residents of District 7 to be determined, it's critical that those issues, whether it's policy issues or investment in your tax dollars and how they will impact your life, your children's life, even our grandchildren's lives. It's important that the people making those decisions have experience and have had the relationships that will help guide that policy. As Mayor Pinecrest for 8 years, as president of the Miami-Dade League of Cities, I have had the experience of determining policies and investing where quality of life issues and the infrastructure needs of our community are most critical. And I come to this campaign and this race not only from the perspective of being mayor of Pinecrest, but having spent the past year going out to every corner of the district, talking to residents, community leaders, and electeds to get their input and understand what they want to see out of their next county commissioner.
Great, thank you very much. So as both of you have seen, in Fort Lauderdale, there have been about a dozen major pipes breaking. There was a fisherman who went on the air the other day. He said, it's getting polluted. Water up there. What are we going to do about Biscayne Bay, number one? And number two, what about our aging sewer systems, which is already on the books to spend several $1 billion, right, to replace it? What can you do to help the district and then also help keep Biscayne Bay cleaner?
Well, I think it's very important for people to understand the different components of this. Our first problem is, as you mentioned, an aging infrastructure. When I ran for county mayor in 2016, I was accused of being obsessed with water and sewer and our septic systems. And I was really ahead of what was going to happen in terms of the Biscayne Bay and the green algae task force that the governor also established. I knew about it because of the work that I was doing with developers in terms of how the county had decided to replace infrastructure. What the county did was pass that on to the private sector, where the private sector was bringing in new pipes and fusing them to pipes that, in the case of Coconut Grove, for example, are 70 years old. So when you have a new building in Coconut Grove and you fuse that pipe with a 7-year-old pipe, you're going to have a break a block, half a block down. At the same time, District 7 is the district that has the greatest amount of septic tanks. We all talk about the environment, and I think we're all on the same page, but the reality is that the biggest threat to our environment, and the Biscayne Bay Task Force has said the same thing, and now the state of Florida is saying the same thing, is the leakage out of these septic tanks and the ruptures that are putting septic into our water system, and the fact that our water table is 1.5 feet underneath those septic tanks. At the same time, what we're seeing in Fort Lauderdale is the problems that we're having here. They're just having it more often because they're having more development. Right now, our number one priority is to eliminate septic. That has been a priority in Miami-Dade County for decades. We talk about people who are members of the legislature. In 2013, we talk about our consent order, right? And for those of you who don't know, there's a consent order with the state of Florida because we have a third world water and septic system. The first consent order wasn't the one that we're dealing with now. The first one was in 1995. And in 2013, our Florida legislators decided that we had to comply with ocean outfall. And Miami-Dade County went and was supported by its delegation to push that number out. Right now, Monroe is compliant with ocean outfall. They're not putting septic into the ocean. Miami-Dade County is still doing that. We have ACOM that's working on a plan, and they still haven't come up with a solution. So we're behind the 8 ball on that. And because of that, we're not receiving funding from Tallahassee, while other counties are getting money in hand to go from septic to sewer. The response sadly, from most of our locals, electeds, has been to push that cost out to residents. And that's not right, because that is a responsibility that Miami-Dade County has. And those residents have been paying their water bills for a very long time. And this system was supposed to be self-funded. And that's what the consent decree is about. So this year in Tallahassee, we have a new governor who's changing the rules. He's coming to inspect the plants, and he's demanding change. And we hope that Miami-Dade County will start complying.
Great. Mayor?
Well, quite frankly, the state is not very likely to come to our rescue, nor the federal government anytime soon. They have put the onus on the county, and the county has failed to abide by the consent decrees over many, many years. Delayed maintenance is continuing, and that the pipe that burst under the Alita River last year, the county staff came to a Biscayne Bay committee meeting to explain what happened. And what he explained was, quite frankly, unacceptable. practiced by the county, because he said, well, we were supposed to be maintaining those pipes and replacing them back in 2013. However, yeah, he claimed we were still in a recession in 2013, which, to the best of my knowledge, we were not. Then they extended that repair to 2018, and here we were, 2019. It had yet to be done. So the county has just neglected its responsibility under the requirement. The dollars were supposedly allocated and have not been spent. The management of and the oversight has not, there's been no accountability to make sure that the administration does what it was supposed to do. Quite frankly, if the mayor was in private industry, he would have been fired for his failure to adequately oversee the maintenance of the pipes. So what do we do now? The county came out with a report in November, and that report said we've got over 125,000 septic tanks that need to be replaced or rebuilt to the tune of maybe $3 billion. So what is the county commission doing? They've set that report on the shelf and they are not taking responsibility. That's what a new commission needs to do.
Thank you. And there is a, I'm familiar with an older condominium building, and there are 150 units in this building, and it was built in the 70s. And every couple of months, one of those pipes breaks. Now, it does go to a sewer, but the pipes are breaking. And because the association does not have a lot of money, they only replace this little part that's broken.
It's exactly what the county's been doing. Piecemeal. It's a piecemeal replacement. That's why it doesn't work.
And these poor people, because it tears up their house, it goes right through their house. The floors never match. And you know, in 6 months or a year or two, it's going to be the same story. Now, we haven't seen too many breaks recently, but we know what that means, that it's about to happen in a big way. I was listening to WRLN a couple of months ago, and they talked about that people are using less water historically. And there's not enough money being generated by selling water to the clients, so there's not enough money to fund these changes that need to be made, billions and billions of dollars. And these pipes in the condo association were put in at the exact same time that the county put in the pipes that are that move the water. So if they're breaking into the condo association, all right, all the time, all right, I'm sure that some of those pipes underneath are just leaking like crazy. Yeah. So talk a little bit about water. Let's move on to in the village of Pinecrest had a vote in 2019 where 63% of the people said, we don't want to tax ourselves, all right, to put in county water to the rest of the people. They were sort of the haves and have-nots with that. And it failed. So what if anything, would you do to try to help the people in whatever area it is so they can, if the water is bad, to be able to bring county water to more people?
Well, I disagree with the idea that the Tallahassee cannot help us. Tallahassee right now has money for septic to sewer conversion. Miami-Dade County cannot apply for that money because we're not in compliance with ocean outfall. We've spent millions of dollars, to AECOM in particular, for studies on ocean outfall. There's only 3 ways to deal with ocean outfall. So we need to stop the studies and the committees and the spending. AECOM just got an extension of their contract where they were given another few $1 million to finish what appears to be unfinishable for them. And part of the problem is that the county has outsourced a lot of the services that used to be provided for water and sewer, which is why their numbers don't match up. It's not that people are not paying for water. In fact, the residents of Miami-Dade County are paying more for water now than they've ever been paying. And their use is less, but their use is less because the price went up and people have become more aware of the cost of water. That being said, there is money in Tallahassee for septic to sewer, but we have to comply with ocean outfall and make that a priority and stop using, what has happened in the past as an excuse. And federal compliance also opens up federal funding. So I don't think that residents should be the ones to pay for that infrastructure. I think that the people of Pinecrest voted correctly. They should not be forced to self-tax for what the government is supposed to do. Miami-Dade County exists for a purpose, and the main part of that purpose is security in the unincorporated areas, transportation, which is a service they provide, and water and sewer. So if they cannot manage one of their core services, why do they even exist? So it's completely on the money that the people of Pinecrest voted against it, and shame on those who supported it and told them that the solution to the problem at the county, as opposed to a change in government and a change in leadership, was self-tax. How is that leadership? Okay, so we're at the line and they've done the wrong thing and they've outsourced this. So instead of asking them to be responsible, we're just going to take it upon ourselves and self-tax. Then why do we pay the county to begin with? I think they were right on the money.
Okay, Mayor?
I'll say it again, there is my opponent may not realize it, but every year in the legislative session, the statewide localities come begging for money from Tallahassee for water projects, sewer projects, to the tune of about $1 billion worth of requests a year. You know how much money the legislature allocates for water projects and special what we call earmarks to localities? Less than $100 million each year. So there is a significant gap in needs versus willingness by the legislature to pay. The money does need to come from the county because the county is the utility. People pay into the utility for water. People maintain the utility by paying their bills. And so the expectation from the people in Pinecrest was, why should we be taxing ourselves to finish a water system and then turn it over to the county and have the county be able to collect more money from us for those services? When I was elected mayor, we had received from the old county GOB bond about $4 million to start the water project. And we got a small allocation from the state that year as well. That was the last year we saw any money from the state of Florida. So we built out half of that infrastructure at the time. There are approximately 750 homes left. So if elected, I will make sure that that money, the project's completed and the money comes from the county.
Great. And speaking of people misspending money, the people decided to tax ourselves for better roads. This county commission and all the ones that I know allowed the administration to spend reportedly over $1 billion on non-traffic issues that the money was supposed to be for. Recently, the local commissioner, Suarez, friend, he voted against the Kendall Parkway, which may never happen, right? But he voted against that. And I was wondering if that was before you today, if it should be in this, so this is a short answer. Would you vote for that along with the other commissioners, or would you say, for whatever those reasons were, and if you would explain them, why you would vote against it?
Well, first of all, Javier Suarez has just put my name up to be his representative at CITT. The reason that I get to serve on that board now is before I couldn't, because if you had sued Miami-Dade County, you couldn't be on the CITT, and I sued Miami-Dade County on the Skyrise issue, and they had to give the money back because they lied to the voters of the city of Miami. So I'm very proud to be his appointee now to the CITT board. His reasoning for voting against that was, number one, he didn't agree with the use of the half penny in that manner. He believed that it would be better spent in other projects. And there's also the issue of the UDB and the expansion and sort of what would come after. Sort of, why are you building a road out to nowhere? And we all know that Lerner and other people are sitting on the other side of that and have been sitting on the other side of that for a very, very long time. Carlos Jimenez supported the expansion of the UDB in our campaign in 2016, and that was a first step. So I would have voted against it. I understand that there is frustration in that area because they want mobility, but I think we have to stand firm on the UDB, and I think we have to have a conversation about the UDB, about transit, about the proper use of the half penny, and giving people options. Right now, I'm meeting with our legislators in Tallahassee to see if we can change the rules for FDOT. I work in the private sector with developers, and when we talk about changes to density, we have to provide a traffic study that is a year old. If it's a year and a day, I have to go back and get another traffic study. FDOT uses traffic studies that are 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And I'm going to get that changed. I'm working with some legislators now to use this issue that happened with the MDX express lanes to change how FDOT works and the information that they give to the TPO, to make sure that when they make those presentations to the TPO about what's coming, they have to provide real data and not old data. And I think that's an important first step. I support the Better Bus Project. I've been working with them and getting people to understand why that's important. And the half penny should be spent as it was promised.
Thank you, Mayor.
I too would have voted against the extension for some of the same reasons. Primarily, the half penny needs to be spent where we voted for it to be spent, which was transit. I have been fighting for probably the past 6 or 8 years to extend Metro Rail all the way to Homestead along the South Dade corridor, and I will continue to fight to extend the Metro Rail. If we had the transit that should have been built all along, if those dollars had not been diverted by the county for the last 10 years just for regular maintenance and operations, we would have been able to start that project. We would have had matching dollars if we were going to draw down federal, and if not, we would have been able to go forward with some public-private partnerships to extend transit. I do not work with developers. I work as a public advocate with many of the environmental communities and organizations, and the idea of going out to extend the 836 as the mayor has tried to do would be a open door for development, and that is the wetlands that we need to protect and preserve. So for all of those reasons, I would have voted the same way the Commissioner Suarez did.
So as I look at the issue with traffic and building, and I'm pro-business, but yet I live in horse country and have property next to the levee at 260th Street. And we picked 260th Street because we couldn't go any farther west, right? Away from everybody, away from everything. And then on the other hand, I'm an advocate, move people from over here and get them so they can go, to work. So I sort of switch my hats back and forth, and it's tough, right? Because we raise animals. We close their gate, and we're just there with our critters. We sit out there with the peacocks and the dogs and the chickens, and it's wonderful. Now, the next we're going to start with, we have questions for each of you. And so we're going to start with Mayor Lerner. One of your slogans is, "It's time for action."
Right.
You've been using that for a while. Specifically, what in your past demonstrate that you're ready to get things done for the future?
Great, thank you for giving me that opportunity. When I was mayor of Pinecrest, there were a number of infrastructure improvements that we conducted, programs that we started that had not been done and that the community was asking for. For example, we did not have a stormwater master plan. We initiated the stormwater master plan to alleviate flooding and then began to build out according to the priorities for that. We had funds from CITT that had not been spent when I was first elected, about $500,000, because the previous manager did not believe that there was enough density in Pinecrest to merit having a circulator. We did a traffic study. We looked at where the congestion was, which was around our schools. We started a Pinecrest people mover to pick up kids in the morning for the middle school and the high school and take them home in the afternoon. It is the most popular thing in the village, and we have approximately 4,000 rides a month on the Pinecrest People Mover. We created a strategic plan, and that strategic plan continues. I created a youth advisory council, an education advisory council, a senior program, which we did not have, and all of those things continue because they were important to improve infrastructure and quality of life for the residents in Pinecrest, and I plan on doing the same type of things for the entire district.
That's great. And I remember when you were mayor, and I think that you did a great job there. And our next question is for you. One of your promises is protection of coastal communities.
Yes.
Specifically, how are you going to help us prepare for the sea level rise?
Well, I think it's important for everyone to understand, and just to correct something that was said earlier, the state of Florida does give money for septic and sewer. You just have to be compliant with federal law. Miami-Dade County is not compliant with federal law. The governor just gave money to Monroe. They just gave money to Jupiter, and they've continued giving money to these counties because they're compliant with ocean outfall. So we don't get funds because we are not compliant with federal law, number one. Number two, it is so important for us to start talking about our seawalls. We have so many issues with our seawalls. This district has the greatest amount of seawalls of any other district because of the way that it's laid out. Right now, the federal government has given a plan as to what it would cost to maintain these seawalls. And one of the things we have to do is restructure Durham under the county so that Durham can better serve this community, in particularly District 7. The current administration has Durham employees that go for 6 months to other different groups. And by the way, I just want to point out, it's not a bad thing that I'm an attorney and that I work in the private sector. I know how the private sector works, and I know how difficult it is for the private sector to go through WASA and to go to Durham, and how it takes years for them to approve those plans, and how that delay prevents buildings from being open, jobs from being created, and how the rules change. And I'll give you a perfect example that impacts, resiliency. When the state of Florida was sued by the federal government because of grease traps. And from one day to another, every restaurant in Miami-Dade County had to comply with a 98.8 grease trap law. And that dramatically altered the way that Durham ran its everyday business and how it was able to deal with seawalls and mangroves and other issues, because all of a sudden they didn't have enough employees to deal with the grease trap issues and with the state of Florida. So all these things are interconnected. You can't just say like this is my one issue and it's not interconnected. The federal money is tied to compliance, the state money is tied to compliance, and that's what we need to focus on. And I'm committed to doing that at the federal and the state level.
Great. So 25 years ago, I was a member of a Rotary Club, and there were no women in it. And I think they would call the wives Rotary Aunts. So the club wanted me to be the secretary and take notes. I said, I'm going there to have a good time, not to take notes. So I brought somebody from the office who happened to be a lady. So after 2 months, I said, I'm going to recommend her for membership. Months go by. Nothing was done. So I was at board of directors meeting, and I said, what is taking so long to get this done? Up to that point, I had no clue. I thought it was just slow. And this is what they said. Well, they let a lady in Kendall, and she became the treasurer, and now they don't have any money. And I said, what you're doing is wrong, and it's illegal. And they said that about blacks and Jews, and you better stop. And so I didn't recommend this to set a precedent. I just did it because it was innocently the right thing to do. When the first woman that was black became president of that Rotary, she called me up, she says, thank you. I said, for what? And then she repeats that story. I said, well, it was my pleasure. Again, I didn't do it to be historic, but I just did it. I care a lot about women getting into public office. And I've seen, when my daughter turned 13 at her bat mitzvah, I went and looked up all the famous women and tried to lift that ceiling. I know the ceiling's there, right? It is there. As many women that are making progress, I know that it's there. And in the 80s, I voted for Geraldine.
Ferrara.
Right.
Ferrara.
And it was like, why did you do that? Because one, it'll be a better world. And two, because I can see people are getting suppressed. So for all those little girls that are out there, they want to achieve where you have been and where you're going. Because one of you are most probably going to be the county commissioner, because there's one gentleman, Ralph Suarez, not related to Xavier, he's running. But statistically, one of you is going to be that. What are you going to do for all those little girls that are out there looking at each of you so you can show them a brighter future?
Well, one of the things that I am most proud of at the school district was the Young Girls Academy. It is the first all-girls school that we did at the school district, and it was in my district. And we're super excited because when we created the curriculum, we created a curriculum of leadership. And we focused on how the girls could become better leaders, how they could become public speakers, how to express themselves, how to collaborate, how to negotiate. And it's been a very successful school where women learn to support other women. But I got to tell you, as happy as I am to be a role model for young women, I have two autistic people at home, and one is a boy, one is a girl, 16 and 14. And I am always and foremost an advocate of what people with disabilities bring to the table, and how our community should include them, and how they should have jobs, and how they deserve to be given a seat, and how they add to our lives. And I always tell people, my children have made me a better person. And while gender empowerment is so important, there's so many people that are doing it, and I'm happy to do it. My lifelong goal will be to explain to people why people with disabilities, be they neurodivergent, like my children, or physical, what they can add to our community, and how giving them jobs and vocational training and allowing them to work at Miami-Dade County like they used to once upon a time. That program almost is non-existent now. They do have jobs in the city of Miami thanks to a program that my father created, but how giving them jobs and how helping them feel part of a community and giving them self-esteem will radically change the way that our community works. So that's my number one thing. I will always be an advocate for people with disabilities, and I promise everyone in the county, not just the residents of District 7, that although I'm all for gender empowerment, and listen, I was criticized at the school board because I had an all-female staff in my school board office, but I've always been about giving women opportunity. But right now, I think we've done so much on the side of educating people about autism. Really, the next 10 years has to be about giving autistic people jobs. They need jobs.
So a friend of ours has a 24-year-old autistic son who he works in the kitchen, either at Publix or the school
Yes.
board, and I see him, and he's
The school board has a program, yes, it's
and
wonderful.
the young man, he's so proud. I've watched him grow over the years, and his father's committed, like you are, to making opportunities for them and to get them, as you say, at the table. Mayor?
So I was a Girl Scout. My daughters were Girl Scouts. My younger daughter had the Gold Award, which carried through to help her get into all the colleges that she applied to. So shout out to Girl Scouts. I continue to support the leadership opportunities that and the inspiration that comes out of programs like that. I have, as the one who created the Youth Advisory Council for Pinecrest, even though I am termed out as mayor, that was my baby. And I still go to the Youth Advisory Council meetings and talk about civic engagement and involvement and how critically important it is, especially for the young women, to show them what a joyful experience it can be to be a mayor, to run for office, to be a leader in your environment. And I do that when I go visit schools. I went to a very proud graduate of all Palmetto schools. So when I go to Palmetto Elementary School and I tell them that when I was in 4th grade at Palmetto Elementary, if somebody had said to me, "You're going to be the mayor of Pinecrest one day," I would have never believed it. And then I look at the girls in the class and I'll say, that means any one of you could be a mayor, you could be a congresswoman, you could be the president. And those kind of discussions and engagement and showing by example the positive and joyful experience it is as a woman to be a leader and to collaborate, which women do so much better than men, I must say.
Yes. So you never know when those little eyes are watching you, and we had some friends, they were in college and they were getting degrees, undergraduate degrees in phys ed or something like that. So I would invite them over to our house when I would make sure I had people that were in the health arena that had advanced degrees. And I'm pleased to say one became a nurse practitioner and the other one just got his doctorate in physical therapy. And he came by to tell me, and one of them came by to tell me that because of my communication with him and because of what he'd done, the conversations I had with him, he became involved in the physical therapy laws, and he would go, when he was in school, he would go to Tallahassee and fight for the rights of physical therapists. And I just sort of reconnected with him a couple of weeks ago, so I was very moved, and you never know when you can make that impact, so I urge you to keep doing what you're doing. As you know, traffic and transportation is the talk of the town. We'll put aside that we got stiffed, all right? But let's talk about on the south end. Pinecrest, Palmetto Bay, Cutler Bay, Homestead, Florida City. At some point, they were all sort of connected. I think Coral Gables a little bit. And that broke apart. It didn't just fall apart. So now the big stink down south. Is Palmetto Bay part of your district? Is that part of it?
Yeah.
The transportation, if the bridges get done in Palmetto Bay, that will bring traffic right through Palmetto Bay, 77th Avenue in particular, and maybe 87th Avenue. So what might that mean to the people there in Pinecrest and overall through the district?
Well, listen, I think that the biggest problem that we have is obviously everyone knows that the half penny failed, right? And there's so much disenchantment because of the half penny. Somewhere along the way, we all started talking about rail versus everything else. And I think that that was a mistake. I think we all agree that rail should be our priority and that it's important. But while we were having this conversation, the ridership in Miami-Dade County Transit has been more and more reduced every year, and it is at an all-time low.
Ridership
in buses,
okay,
and Metro Rail, but in buses mainly is the problem. And with that, every time that gets lower, it reduces our ability to get federal funding, right? So that's important. And I think that rail is a wonderful end, but it takes time and it's going to take money. And we need to focus on the busway. We need to give people immediate relief, and we need to synchronize the lights. When I got elected in 2010, I went to the TPO and I said, can we synchronize the lights around schools? Just basic stuff, right? So that when the school zones are there, the lights are aware of it. We've got promises and promises and promises. A lot of people complain about the lack of synchronization. When Miami-Dade County bought its current system, it was outdated when it was purchased. So that leads us to the disaster where we are now. But I think if we synchronize the lights, if the TPO actually focuses on doing basic things first, then we can get to the rail. But right now, South Dade needs rapid buses. And look, I'm not a fan of MDX. I have been against a lot of things that MDX has done, and I think that what recently happened in Tallahassee is in many ways well deserved. But MDX had a plan to put little bridges on the busway like 7 years ago. And the idea was that the buses would keep moving and the cars would go under. And people were against it because they thought that the bridges were going to be ugly. And again, we can get into what the bridges are going to look like, but we have to get people moving. And now we have MDX going, to FIU, we have the Dolphin, we have rapid buses, and that's a start. But I think we need to start somewhere. We need to bring up our ridership. We need to start applying for federal money. I have a transit plan that I drafted when I ran for mayor in 2016. So I've been talking about it for a long time.
Right. Mayor?
So first I want to correct something that you said. When the study for the South Dade went to the TPO, you had said that there was a unified front with all of the mayors from South Dade, including Pinecrest when I was mayor, 3 of the county commissioners, and Representative Keone McGee. We were a very strong unified front.
Yep.
We were going for and expected we would be able to convince the TPO that the time was right to go forward with the determination to be extending the Metro Rail, maybe to phase it through so that it would be from Dadeland to Cutler Bay in phase 1 and later on do the second phase. Unfortunately, Mayor Jimenez had his finger on the valve, and the decision that came out, the preferred mode, was what he asked the decision to be. He went around before the study even was completed telling us that I know things that you don't know and you're not going to get what you want. So the study came out as he dictated that it would be BRT and not Metro Rail. But we were a united front. And when we went to that very first TPO meeting, we had the votes. We had the votes and the mayor realized it. So what did he do? He deferred the meeting for a month. Doug Hanks has written about this, so I'm not making it up. He followed up, he did his own investigation, and he wrote about it. The mayor then went back to commissioners with his buddy, who is the lobbyist for the bus system, and peeled off the votes that he needed to get the votes as he wanted in that decision. And my commitment when elected as the next commissioner is to get that reconsidered, to go back and show that ridership is not what the ridership was reduced because the mayor again reduced the bus routes, he eliminated routes, he converted some of the routes to private jitneys. If you can only fit 20 people on a jitney and 80 people on a bus, you're going to have reduced ridership, and that was intentional by the mayor.
Well, we can have a new mayor coming up.
Yep, we sure will.
Yes. So there's
By the way, those mayors also supported Jimenez in his campaigning when
Okay.
I ran against him, so
the,
there's that.
and the county recently changed the zoning on county property. I mean, property that was in the counties around the busway to go from 3 stories to 6 stories to invite people to live there so they won't need vehicles. And maybe that is the beginning of looking long term. I certainly don't have that ability to look down 10, 15 years and be able to say, these are the things we need to do to try to control the number of cars that are on the roads.
But you are going to see it in the next year or two because that decision was based on a zoning change that they made several years ago around the Metro Rail station
Yes.
in 37th and 27th. Those contracts were delayed for many years, but now they're finally going to start building. So we're going to see if it's true before it gets built on the busway. We're going to see if they can provide smaller, denser housing in, around the Metro Rail area. They're also going to do mixed use, so they're going to have smaller stores that don't have parking, and we're going to see if people want to live in buildings without parking, if it's on the Metro Rail or in this case on the busway. So we will know soon enough.
Good. So let's talk about annexation, right, and incorporation. Miami Today did a full-page editorial about hey, we're going to be a bunch of cities soon enough. Well, it was a great story, great piece. It wasn't quite a story, it was a piece, and it was well written. But when we take into account Highland Oaks, neighbors didn't want it. Little Gables, people didn't want it. High Pines didn't want it. Dennis Moss's district didn't want it. The Falls don't want it. Ponce, I don't know, a couple other areas. So although I've been told that the county is going to perhaps bring something forth to where they want the whole thing annexed, or cities just like Broward County, but I don't see the neighbors, the residents, really wanting it. Do you have any thoughts about that?
There's a few things.
Can we start
Yeah,
with
go ahead,
Mayor?
yeah.
Go ahead.
Sure. It should be the determination of the neighborhood, what they choose to do. There are a significant number of people in the Falls that do want to incorporate into their own community, and then there were a number that didn't, that probably had louder voices.
Yes.
And sometimes that's what happens, but it shouldn't be just a universal, we're going to incorporate everywhere and everybody. It should be self-determination.
So a couple of years ago, the county did a study in West Kendall. They found an area of 40 to 50,000 people. The MAC Municipal Advisory Committee said this could work. Joe Martinez ran anti-incorporation, and he killed it. I had asked him at the time, why don't you just let the people vote on it? Well, he said because he's not going to let that happen. All right. I happen to think that it wouldn't have passed because we couldn't put together 200 people out there. No matter, we could feed them for a month. It would not matter in certain areas. All right. They're not against it. They're just not for it. It's like, why? All right.
Well, if I can answer.
Yes.
So I think that this year, even though everyone's talking about the mayor race, I think people should be looking at the commission seats, because now we have the implementation of term limits from 2012. And a lot of the commissioners who voted for the moratorium on incorporation, when people wanted to incorporate, are coming off the commission. And a lot of the people who are left want to go now and become municipals. So right there you have a change in the talk about incorporation. You add to that a serious conversation about services. Most of the people who talk about incorporation because they're complaining about the services that they do not receive from Miami-Dade County. Carlos Jimenez has said that he didn't raise taxes, but the garbage fee went up double. This last year, he decided that if you didn't use your trash by the end of the year, you lost it. You could no longer roll it over. And we could go service by service, in UMSA, and explain how the people who live in unincorporated Miami-Dade have been receiving less and less services as time has gone by. That being said, the big issue that will come, and then there's a zoning problem. You mentioned Little Gables. The Little Gables issue is a zoning issue. The houses in Little Gables are not up to Coral Gables code, and the people that live there are aware of that. And that's always been a very difficult thing to navigate, because they would have a very limited time in order to bring their houses to compliance. And they feel that they would be forced out of their homes in order to become compliant, because the city of Coral Gables does not want to grandfather in non-compliant homes. So you have areas where the zoning is an issue, and now you have the sheriff. The people who sit on the new 2020 Miami-Dade County Commission will in 2021 craft the duties of the sheriff. And that is a radical change. We haven't had a sheriff in a long time. Our mayor is the sheriff. And it was modeled in Tallahassee after the Broward County model. The Broward County model is a full incorporation model. And that is very different from what we have in Miami-Dade County. So now when we determine how the sheriff is going to work, with the existing municipal sheriffs, how they're going to work with the cities who use the Miami-Dade County police, and how the sheriff is going to work in terms of direct contact with the officers on the streets in unincorporated Miami-Dade, we're going to have a very interesting conversation about police power in Miami-Dade County. So there is a push from law enforcement now towards full incorporation in order to make the sheriff's position more similar to what it is in other counties. So you're going to get it from all fronts, but you're right. One of the big issues in 2021 will be incorporation.
So I was wondering about who was making those stories happen.
There you
And
have it.
So now it's coming out
Now
a
it's
little bit
clear.
more.
Now it's clear.
And I've completely annexation and corporate. No, we already did that.
Yeah, we did it. We
Okay.
did it. And of course,
Thank-
people should vote. Of course,
Right.
people should vote. People, should vote and decide they want to be part of cities.
I used to think term limits would really get voted out, all right? But I'm got to tell you, I'm all for it now because you have a maximum 8 years clock starts, man, and it goes by fast. So congratulations to everybody that voted, for that. Next thing, Pets Trust has been
Yes.
a big deal for the last 8 or 10 years. Group of people got together, and I believe it was a straw ballot that said, are we willing to tax ourselves to take money and take it to help our four-legged friends? This commission has decided not to do that and to sort of put them off, but they still put in 20, 30, 40 million dollars into the system to make it a little better. I'm sure the Pets Trust is breathing down every candidate's neck, all right, to try to get some support for it. Have they approached you, and what will
They
you do?
endorsed me in 2016, so we go way back. I supported the Pets Trust before I even announced that I was running for mayor of Miami-Dade County in 2016. I helped Michael and Rita and consider them friends. They opened a PAC to support me when I ran in 2016. I helped them with the lawsuit too, and we've talked about it. I think what the mayor did after 2016 was PR. I mean, he opened a new animal shelter, but it's PR. We're still not taking cats. We're still killing dogs. And I told the story in 2015, and I'll tell it again. I was watching the Miami-Dade County Commission with my son, Sebastian, the day that they decided to invalidate what the people of Miami-Dade County wanted. And he asked me, and I explained to him that we kill pets here when they are not adopted. And the next day, I took him to the shelter. We went to the section, like they call it death row. They actually call it that. And we picked out Marshmallow, who was going to be euthanized in 16 hours. And she's a very happy, wonderful little dog. And we need to change it. We need to do right by the Pets Trust. We need to stop killing animals. Most people, if you ask them today, believe that we have no-kill shelters. We need to get rid of the cat sanctuary. I don't know if you've been to the cat sanctuary in Westchester, but it is something out of a horror movie. When you talk about hundreds and hundreds of cats, we have wonderful people like the Cat Network that go around picking up cats and neutering them. We've gotten better about promoting adoption in Miami-Dade County, but we still have a crisis. We've put a Band-Aid on the problem, and we just need to be a no-kill county, period. That's all there is, no more.
Mayor?
So I'll start out by, in full disclosure, explaining that my husband's a veterinarian. He happens to be president of the Miami Veterinary Foundation. They work very closely with animal services. And yes, more money has been invested by the county over the years because much of that money now is contracted out to veterinarians to do the spay and neuter of cats and dogs throughout the county, so it's not centralized just in the new animal services department. There's still more that can and should be done. There are a tremendous number of dog and cat rescue programs that are run by the most passionate, devoted animal advocates you'd ever want to meet, but they are not provided with the kind of services from the animal shelter that they should be provided. They have I think it's a lifetime allocation for medical care for the rescue animals, and it shouldn't be a limit. They should be able to take any animal that they are willing to take in and care for to animal services or to a contracted veterinarian to provide that kind of medical care. I have been working with Rita and Michael Rosenberg, and they've done a valiant effort to raise the awareness. They may have endorsed my opponent in 2016 when she ran against Jimenez because she was running against Jimenez, but they have not endorsed her in this race, and had said that they haven't even talked to her recently.
So my hat's off to the Pets Trust people, Michael and Rita, and the group of
Yes,
people.
right.
And for Michael Rosenberg to spend the night or the weekend over there in that kennel over there, You got to give it to him. I mean, that
And there's a great movie by Joe Cardona also about
Yeah.
the pet trust, so we recommend everyone watch it.
So we're getting to the end, and each of you can have 2 minutes, sorry, to say things about yourself and why people should vote for you. And we'll
No, that's our start, yeah,
Okay.
started last time.
All right, want to
Okay,
go ahead and start?
thank you.
And the camera is this one right over there.
This one, okay. So thank you, Michael and Community News, for giving us this opportunity to get a sense of each of the two of the three candidates that are running for the District 7 County Commission. As I have indicated, I have the experience from being a mayor for 8 years of understanding what it takes to oversee a municipal, local government, plan a budget, implement, and make sure that we are proposing policies that are consistent with the kind of quality of life that we want for our residents. What I did realize when I was president of the Miami-Dade League of Cities was how poorly Miami-Dade County fails to collaborate with the 34 cities in the county, and how critically important it is that Miami-Dade take a lead in so many issues that we are grappling with. The most critical and existential one that we face is climate change and sea level rise. I've been working on that since 2010 as mayor, working both at the local and at the national level to understand what best practices are for county government and to make sure that working collaboratively with all of the cities and the county that we have the kind of leadership that we need to address our vulnerabilities and invest where we must to maintain the kind of quality of life that we want to see for our children and our grandchildren. So I would appreciate your support, your vote on August 18th, and please go to www.cindylerner.com to learn more about me and my issues.
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor. Raquel?
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. If the people who are watching want to know more about me, they can go to www.raquelregalado.com. I have extensive experience with budgets. When I was at the school board, I was a school board appointee to the Treasury Committee, where I drafted the $1 billion bond. I was also the school board member in charge of facilities and construction, and dealt day to day with the facilities and construction and the 5-year plan of all the schools in Miami-Dade County School District. Miami-Dade County Schools is the 4th largest school district in the nation, and the only thing in the state of Florida comparable with the Miami-Dade County budget. At Miami-Dade County Public Schools, not only did I deal with facilities, I also was the liaison for FPL and everything that had to do with resiliency and code enforcement, and I worked closely with our school police when we talk about school security. When the school board was losing $56 million a year because Miami-Dade County was behind 3.5 years on the value adjustment board appeals, I was sent to not only Tallahassee, but to Miami-Dade County as the appointee to the Value Adjustment Board. In 8 months, we had more meetings in the Value Adjustment Board than the board had had in 15 years. I personally rewrote the policies and procedures. We got new magistrates. I brought new technology. We restructured the entire thing, and in 8 months, we set the course so that 4 months later, Miami-Dade County was now compliant with the current Value Adjustment Board standards. The bills that I drafted, what we took to Tallahassee, and the policies and procedures that I created for the Value Adjustment Board became the standard statewide for Value Adjustment Boards. I brought money not only to Miami-Dade County schools, but also to Miami-Dade County, who had not been collecting those funds. When Miami-Dade County got a reduction in transit bills, I restructured our transit system, sold some of our transit hubs, sold buses, bought new buses, and made money from the proposal. It took us 3 years, but we did it. I've done amazing work at the school board, and that's what I take to Miami-Dade County. Actual proven work, area by area, school by school. We need people that have actually done the work, not attended committees and made the promises.
Ladies, thank you very much.
Thank
Raquel
you.
Regalado, Cindy Lerner, both would like your vote in District 7. We have absentee, people can go absentee ballots, early voting, and then
And election
and
day.
the last day of the election,
And it's in August.
August. So you guys, when you think you're going on vacation, make sure that you vote for the candidate of choice. It's important, and get your kids to vote, and your neighbors, and your parents, and your aunts and uncles. Ladies, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Pleasure.
and we're gonna look right at that camera, and we're gonna say thanks for joining us today, and have a great day. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.